page turners, welcome back to the channel. I'm Matthew, the man with a hat who reads. And today we are looking back at the month that was. This is my February 2025 wrap-up. February was not a great month for me. One over multiple reasons. Statistic-wise, we finished 7 books in February. That was down considerably from last year when we read 13 in February. Bringing the year total to 17 so far, down from 26 at the same point the previous year. It was a rough month. There was also no writing done. And we're going to explain all of that here. Essentially, if you haven't been watching that close or haven't heard, I went through a really lovely cold and flu bug about the middle of the month that just knocked me flat. I mean, I couldn't focus on reading. I couldn't focus on anything. I had like 50 pages left of a book when I got ill, and it sat for like 4 days before I could finally pick it up and finish that last chunk, barely a chunk to read in that book. I just could not focus on anything. And once I got over the worst of it, which was about 5 or 6 days, I was able to start kind of making up ground again and getting stuff read, but I was already well behind and wasn't going to turn things around that much. For the most part, the stuff I read was pretty good though. So let's start with the stuff I didn't get to. I didn't get to my reread of Mark Lawrence's One Word Kill, so I'm going to just stick that in somewhere else in the year. Not sure where yet. The main reason I wanted to reread this was because I never read the other two, don't have the other two, and I don't honestly remember anything about this anymore. So that's a sign it's time to reread it. I also didn't get to Catherine Dunn's Geek Love. I just ran out of time. Same with One Word Kill. And I finished it now in March, but Charlie Human's Apocalypse Now was not quite finished by the end of the month. I think I was about a third of the way in when February got done. I have since finished it, and we will save my thoughts for the March wrap-up. That should be, my reaction there should be all the indication you need on that. But we'll get into more detail with that next month. So let's talk about what I actually got read. First book I read in the month was Jeff Zentner's Colton Gentry's Third Act. I mainly had this one in there because Valentine's Day and all that good stuff. Lovely. This was an enjoyable read. It's predictable as heck. You know everything that's going to happen before it happens. You know how it's going to end. It's predictable, or at least it was for me. That being said, I kind of enjoyed it about this guy's path to redemption, kind of becoming a better version of himself. I really appreciated that. I really enjoyed this. It was a very, like I said, very fast read. I'd pick it up and start reading, and all of a sudden it'd be 50 pages later, and I would want to keep going. It was very much good after that rough January, that I was just flying through this. I really, really enjoyed this. Very good. Nice surprise for the year so far. Nice pleasant surprise to kickstart the year. Then we read Peter S. Beagle's I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. This book, trying to think of a way to be, this wasn't for me. I know Peter Beagle is a pillar in fantasy, wrote The Last Unicorn as well as numerous others. And this is kind of advertised as like a, well, it feels like with that title, it feels like a very tongue-in-cheek fantasy novel. The characters, I just could not connect with the characters. They weren't clicking for me at all. Our hunter who hunts these dragons is supposedly also loves taking care of them as well, which seems kind of weird. And, you know, we get dragon genocide at one point in the castle with these little tiny dragons in the walls. So that's always a pleasant experience, isn't it? Genocide. And it just never really felt like it got going. until all of a sudden it was done. The ending felt very rushed, but the buildup was so slow. It didn't click with me at all. And it pains me to say that because I was really looking forward to this. And I mean, like I said, the illustration work is it's gorgeous. But I just this didn't work for me at all. This was a 3-star read. I had a hard time with it. I really had a hard time with this one. For as short as it was, I was struggling a bit with this one until I finally just powered through and got it done. So then when I fell ill, I was working on 2 books. This is the one that I had about 50 pages left when I went ill, and that was Terry Goodkind's Wizard's First Rule. This is the first in his Sword of Truth series, and I absolutely loved it. 5-star read all the way across, and like I said, I got down to like this little dab left when I went ill, and I just couldn't even think about picking it up. I knew I wouldn't be able to focus. I really enjoyed this. I do want to continue on with the series at some point. Not sure when that will be. Because I have a lot of other fantasy stuff already in my stack. And I don't have any more of these right now. So I do want to continue on with this at some point. Don't know when. I did enjoy this a lot, though. James B. Stewart's Disney War. I picked this one up for Filmtastic February. I don't know if that was going on or not. This is a nonfiction book about the rise and fall of Michael Eisner at Disney. And this, being the movie guy that I am, big movie fan, this book was fantastic. I absolutely loved this. Just seeing like the rise of like Disney in the late 80s into the 90s when they were at their peak with animation and peak with everything, and then watch as they slowly plummeted again in the early 2000s, especially in the animation department. It's just fascinating. And some of the projects that were in consideration at Disney, and Michael Eisner as head of the Disney company said, no, we're not going to fund that. No, we're not going to push any money towards that. That's a losing premise or whatever. And you find out that Disney passed on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. They passed on Survivor. They passed on, just like that, I lost it. What was the other big? Oh, CSI. All these movies and TV shows that they passed on. And then you think, gosh, you guys could have made so much money with that, you morons. I really enjoyed this a lot. It just was very, very fascinating for me. I can see some people would probably not click with it as much, but if you're a huge Disney fan and you know like a lot of the Disney stuff coming out, you'd probably semi enjoy this because it's actually very interesting. I found it very interesting. So like I said, then we were ill, then we pulled through it with Richard Kadri's Kill the Dead. This was the second book in the Sandman Slim series. This was a reread because I'm rereading this series a book a month. When I first read this series, the second book felt like a step down from the first because it felt like we weren't sure exactly where we wanted to take the series. And I remember that as I was reading it, that the second and third and maybe a little bit of the fourth feel like it's the author trying to find that balance of where he wants the series to go. So this was a 4-star read for me the first time around, and it was again this time because it does feel like we're just trying to develop it. Which is fine. I mean, as the story progresses, I know it gets back into what I really liked. And I still really enjoyed this one, but it does have its problems. And that's to be expected, because you can't have every book be perfect in the series. This is kind of, they're kind of finding their stride with the series. Still enjoyable, still enjoying my reread. I'm looking forward to rereading the third book here in March. Scott Myers Off to Be the Wizard. Great cover. Oh, this book did not work for me either. I'm sorry. I think Kim, the Paper Traveler, had talked about this one. I don't know if she read it or not. Maybe she just has it in her collection. I don't know. I was looking forward to this one too as a very fun fantasy. And it has its fun moments. But it's really hard to call this a fantasy because it's very much, instead, he finds this like computer file, I guess, that he can pretty much just edit his reality and transports himself back in time to the medieval times and becomes a wizard. That's kind of the premise it's promising on the cover and everything. The back cover says about that. The thing is when he gets back to the medieval times, there's all these other people who've already had this idea. They're already posing as wizards, and there's all these wizards, which is a fun idea, and there's some fun things with that idea. But this whole story just, again, similar to what I said about I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, it never really feels like it gets going until all of a sudden you're to the end. We get this reveal at the end that there's a villain. And it just kind of comes out of nowhere. You're having this like fun little story with him kind of trying to become a wizard in this medieval times. And then all of a sudden there's a villain. And you're like, oh, okay, we got a bad guy now. And then they reveal who the bad guy is. And like, okay, that guy was kind of a twat. Sure, he's the villain now. But his plan is just so stupid. His plan is so stupid. And that just turned me off. I was just like, okay, I'll keep reading because I'm down. I mean, the villain reveal, when does it happen? Let's see. Let me look. And it's very close. We're like in the last, it's in the last 100 pages easily before we even find out about a villain. Where is it? Yeah, it's like 281. We reveal this villain. We reveal that there's an evil plot. The actual villain's not revealed until after that. This is a 372-page book. So like I said, we're getting like towards the end before we even get the evil plot involved. I mean, it was semi-enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars. It's just that it felt like we spent a lot of time building up, and then we all of a sudden add in this other plot, and it just felt out of place. I don't know. That's just me, maybe. I don't know. I know people love that book and that whole series. I think there's like 5 or 6 of them. I probably won't continue with it because it just didn't work for me. Finally, the last book we got done in February was Stephen Arian's The Coward. This is the first of a duology. The second one, I believe, is called The Warrior. Yeah, The Warrior. I've had this book sitting here for like 2.5 years. It's been sitting here a long time. And that's why when I was coming to the end of the month and I had to pick what I wanted to read of the stuff left, I thought, okay, The Coward's been here forever. Let's get The Coward read. I really enjoyed this one as well. This was another 4-star for me. Just really enjoyable. The setup, the world's developed, but they don't spend a lot of time on explaining everything about how the world works. Just the whole story premise was so good. I really enjoyed it, that this guy is a hero, a legend, and he's kind of kept it secret all this time that, yeah, he survived when these other heroes died against this villain, but he just wants to be left alone because he doesn't feel like he's the hero. And he doesn't want to go on this quest again, but he kind of finds that he needs to. And I don't know, I really liked this. This is from Angry Robot. The little robot in the corner. I really loved this. I'm going to have to go pick up the sequel because I don't have it yet. I know I've had this for 2.5 years and I didn't have the sequel on hand, but I really enjoyed this. I'm excited to continue on with the sequel. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I'm not going to wait another 2.5 years to do it. And as far as Book of the Month goes, it was a close race between this one and Disney War, but I got to go with Wizard's First Rule. I just really enjoyed this. As thick as it was and as fast as I was moving through it, that's a good sign. So yeah, that was my February reading, or lack thereof in some cases. March is already going to be better. I know it will be better in March. We're moving along. Got one read already and a second one that'll be finished probably by the end of the time the day after this video comes out, I'll probably have it done. So what did you guys think? Am I wrong about some of these? Am I overhyping some of these? What was your book of the month for February? I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep turning pages.